Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Anissa Indah Parawangsa. I'm a student of English Education Study Program of State Islamic University Raden Fatah Palembang. I'm on the third semester now. And as usual, I'd like to share my video due to my test for formal speaking subject. But before I begin, I'd like to say thank you very much to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala who has given me chance and health so I can share this video to you. And also praise to our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who has brought us from the darkness into the brightness era. And also I'd like to say thank you to my lecturer for my speaking subject, my family, my friends, and all of the viewers of this video. Thank you very much for support me. And I would like to say so sorry if I make so many mistakes, wrong perceptions, and other bad things in this video. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to shorten the time, let's start the material. So today I'm going to talk about adolescents' mental health. Well, ladies and gentlemen, due to the rampant suicides committed by teenagers today, it has motivated me to raise these mental health topics. So therefore, this time, the topic that will be discussed is about adolescents and mental health, including what are the characteristics and types of mental illness, and then what are the solutions that we can do to prevent these various mental illnesses. But before we discuss about mental illnesses and its solutions, we must first find out what is meant by adolescence. So ladies and gentlemen, adolescence is the period of transition between childhood and adulthood. It includes some big changes to the body and to the way of a young person relates to the world. And this phase usually starts from the age of 10 to 19 years old. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about adolescence. Then after we know what is adolescence, then we have to know what mental health is. And mental health, defined by the World Health Organization or WHO, is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Well, ladies and gentlemen, simply, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of our life, from the childhood, adolescent, through the adulthood. Then after we know what adolescence is and what is mental health, then we should know what is the correlation between the both of them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we need to know that according to data from Basic Health Research in 2018, the prevalence of mental emotional disorder, which is indicated by symptoms of depression and anxiety, for ages 15 and over, reached around 6.1% of the total populations of Indonesia, or we can say the equivalent of 11 million people. And adolescents, meanwhile, have a depression percentage of 6.2%. The severe depression will experience the tendency to self-harm, to suicide. And about 80 until 90% of suicides are the result of depression and anxiety. The suicide cases in Indonesia can reach 10,000, or the equivalent of every hour there are suicides. And according to sociologists, there are 4.2% of students in Indonesia have thought about committing suicide. And among collegians, about 6.9% had the intention to commit suicide, while the other 3% had attempted suicide. And as we know that young teenagers will be the next future of this country, then how can we reach a better future if our next generation are not in good conditions? So therefore, I consider the knowledge about mental health is very important, and it is an obligation for us to share about it. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about mental health, of course, we have to know what mental illness is. So here are some mental illness that common for the adolescents. First, borderline personality disorder or BPD. Symptoms of this personality disorder usually appear in adolescence before adulthood and persist into adulthood. Symptoms that appear can range from mild to severe. The symptoms can be classified into 4 parts, which consist of mood conditions or moods that are not stable, and this condition usually lasts for several hours, like feeling empty and having trouble on controlling their anger. And then the second is disturbance in thought patterns and perceptions, like suddenly there was a thought that he was bad and a feeling of fear of being ignored, so that he did an extreme thing. And the third is impulsive behavior. This behavior is likely to harm yourself or to act carelessly and irresponsible. For example, include self-harm, attempt suicide, unprotected sex, alcohol abuse, and overreacting. And the last is engaging in intent. This is an unstable relationship. This condition is characteristic by being able to idolize someone and suddenly perceive that person to be cruel or indifferent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in some cases, people with BPD can also experience a delusional disorder called erotomania. Not all people with BPD experience all of the symptoms. Some experience only a few symptoms, and the severity and frequency and durations of symptoms in each severe vary, and depending on the conditions of the disorder being experienced. The next mental illness is depressions. Depressions is a medical condition in the form of sad feelings that negatively affects a person's thought, actions, feelings, and mental health. A person in a depressed stage generally experiences feelings of sadness, anxiety, or emptiness. They also tend to feel trapped in a state of hopelessness, helplessness, rejections, or feelings of worthlessness. Depressions in adolescents can be triggered by a variety of factors, ranging from the environmental, hormonal changes, traumatic experiences, to genetic or heredity. And usually, depressions in adolescents causes complaints and symptoms in the form of first, easy to cry, take offense, and get angry over simple things. 2. Losing interest in doing daily activities. 3. It's easy to beat yourself up. 4. Difficulty concentrating, frequent skipping classes, and dropping grades. 5. Difficulty sleeping and insomnia. 6. It's easy to feel tired. 7. Frequent headache or stomachache. And the last, no appetite or overreacting. The next is bipolar disorder. It is a mental disorder that attacks a person's psychological conditions, which is characterized by extreme mood swings in the form of mania and depressions. And therefore, the medical term was previously known as maniac depressive. A severe mood can suddenly change between two polar opposites, namely happiness and excessive sadness, without a definite pattern or time. And the symptoms of the maniac stage of bipolar disorder are as follows. The first is excessive joy. Second, irritable, so easily get angry. Third, feeling himself very important. 4, feel rich or have more abilities than other people. 5, full of new ideas and enthusiasm. 6, quickly move from one idea to another. 7, heard a voice that no one else could hear. And 8, increase sexual appetite. 9, putting together a plan that doesn't make sense. 10, very active and very fast moving. Next, speaking so fast that it was difficult to understand what was being said. And then waste of money and making strained and sudden decisions but prone to harm. And then feeling very familiar with other people, and it's easy to criticize others, and then difficulty holding back in daily behavior, hard to sleep, feeling so excited as if one day isn't enough for 24 hours. The last but not least mental illness that common for adolescents is schizophrenia. It is a serious mental disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally. Schizophrenia may result in some combinations of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking and behavior that impairs daily functioning and can be disabling. People with schizophrenia require lifelong treatment. Early treatment may help get symptoms under control before serious complications develop and may help improve the long-term outlook. Schizophrenia involves a range of problems with thinking, behavior, and emotions. Signs and symptoms may vary, but usually involve delusions, hallucinations, or disorganized speech and reflect an impaired ability to function. Symptoms may include, first, delusions. These are false beliefs that are not based in reality. For example, you think that you are being harmed or harassed. and then certain gesture or commands are directed at you, and then you have exceptional ability or fame, another person is in love with you, or a major catastrophe is about to occur. Delusions occur in most people with schizophrenia. The second, hallucinations. This usually involves seeing or hearing things that don't exist. Yet for the person with schizophrenia, they have the full force and impact of a normal experience. Hallucinations can be in any of the sense, but hearing voices is the most common hallucinations. The next is disorganized thinking. Disorganized thinking is inferred from disorganized speech. Effective communications can be impaired, and answer to questions may be partially or completely unrelated. Rarely, speech may include putting together meaningless words that cannot be understood, and sometimes known as word salad. The last, extremely disorganized or abnormal motor behavior. This may show in a number of ways, from childlike silliness to unpredictable agitations. And behavior isn't focused on a goal, so it's hard to do tasks. But behavior can include resistance to instructions, inappropriate or bizarre posture, a complete lack of response, or useless and excessive movement. I forgot. The last is negative symptoms. This refers to reduced or lack of ability to function normally. For example, the person may neglect personal hygiene or appear to lack emotions, doesn't change facial expressions, or speak in monotone, for example. And also, the person may lose interest in everyday activities, socially withdraw, or lack the ability to experience pleasure. Symptoms can vary in type and severity over time, with periods of worsening and remissions of symptoms, and some symptoms may always be present. In men, schizophrenia symptoms typically start in the early to mid 20. In women, symptoms typically begin in the late 20. It's uncommon for children to be diagnosed with schizophrenia and rare for those older than age 45. Schizophrenia symptoms in teenagers are similar to those in adults, but the conditions may be more difficult to recognize. This may be in part because some of the early symptoms of schizophrenia in teenagers are common for typical development during the teen years, such as withdrawal from friends and family, a drop in performance at school, trouble sleeping, irritability or depressed mood, and the lack of motivations, less likely to have delusions, and then more likely to have visual hallucinations. And all of this is usually happen for the teenagers that has schizophrenia. Then after we know what is the common mental illnesses in adolescents, then we have to know what is the causes of that mental illnesses. And here are some common causes of mental disorders include: first, head injury, genetic factors, or there is a family history of people with mental disorders, and then domestic violence or other abuse, and then child abuse or a history of violence in childhood, and then having a brain chemical disorder or a brain disorder, and experiencing discriminations and stigma, experiencing the loss or death of someone very close, experiencing social losses such as poverty or debt problems, and then caring for a chronically ill family member or friend, and then unemployed, out of work, or homeless, and then the influence of toxic substance, alcohol, or drugs that can damage the brain, and then severe stress experience for a long time, and socially isolated or feels lonely, living in a bad residential neighborhood, significant trauma such as military combat, serious accidents or crimes, and past experiences. And here are early warning signs. I'm not sure if you or someone you know is living with mental health problems, but experiencing one or more of the following feelings or behavior can be an early warning sign of a problem. The first is eating or sleeping too much or too little, and then pulling away from people and usual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb or like nothing matters, and then having unexplained ache and pains, and then feeling helpless or hopeless, and then smoking, drinking, or using drugs more than usual, feeling unusually confused, forgetful on age, anger, upset, worried, and scared, and then yelling or fighting with family and friends, experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationship, having persistent thoughts and memories you cannot get out of your head, and then hearing voices or believing things that are not true, and then thinking of harming yourself or others, inability to perform daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting to work or school, like this. So the emotional well-being of children is just as important as their physical health. Good mental health allows children and young people to develop the resilience to cope with whatever life throws at them and grow into well-rounded, healthy adults. Things that can help keep children and young people mentally well include here. The first is being in good physical health, eating a balanced diet and getting regular exercise, and then having time and the freedom to play indoors and outdoors, and then being part of a family that gets along well most of the time, and then going to a school that looks after the well-being of all its pupils or students, and then taking part in local activities for young people. And other factors are also important, like including the first is feeling loved, trust, understood, valued, and safe, and then being interested in life and having opportunities to enjoy themselves, and then being hopeful and optimistic, and then being able to learn and having opportunities to succeed, and accepting who they are and recognizing what they are good at, having a sense of belonging in their family, school, and community, and then feeling they have some control over their own life, and then having the strength to cope with someone when something is wrong, and the ability to solve problems. Well, ladies and gentlemen, however, the understanding of mental health in Indonesia tends to be low. This is evidenced by the level of shackling for people with mental disorder of 14% who have been stuck for life and 31.5% in the last 3 months. In addition, 91% of Indonesians who experience mental disorder are not handled properly, and only the remaining 9% can be handled. Not being handled properly can be an indication of a lack of mental health facilities plus a lack of understanding of mental health. Society tends to give a negative stigma to people with mental or mental disorder, namely by criticizing them and considering them as a disgrace, thinking of crazy people. And in addition, people doesn't understand the signs of mental disorders such as depressions, which depression is the most common mental health disorder. And this causes people with impaired mental health to be less likely to open up to treatment and instead feel more preserved by the stigma of the society itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, start from now. Let's care more about your mental health and people around you, especially children and youth, because they really need you much more. In the end of my video, I just want to say, love your mental, love your family. Thank you very much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.